So if you're an engineer practicing in Canada, you know there's this whole web of rules and regulators. It can seem pretty complicated, right? But figuring it out isn't just for a test. It's absolutely critical for your career. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and make sense of the entire system of engineering regulation in this country. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's kick things off with a real-world puzzle. Imagine this. A firm based in Alberta designs a really complex mine, but the mine itself, it's being built in British Columbia. So who's on the hook for making sure it's safe? Who has the final say on the standards? Is it the Alberta regulator, the one in BC? Or is there some kind of national body that steps in? This is exactly the kind of question we're going to clear up.
And don't worry, we've got a clear roadmap for this. We'll start with what's really at stake here, then we'll look at the blueprint for how power is divided up. After that, we'll dive into two key pillars, jurisdiction and independence. And then we'll tie it all back to what it means for you and your daily practice.
First things first, why do we even have this whole system? All these rules and different regulators? It's not just about creating red tape for the sake of it. The entire structure, the whole thing, is built on one single non-negotiable principle.
And this right here, this gets to the absolute heart of it. Every single rule you follow, every standard you have to meet, it all traces back to this one core mission, protecting the public. It's about making sure the bridges we drive over, the buildings we live and work in, and the water we drink are all safe. This is the why behind everything else we're about to talk about.
Okay, so if public safety is the big goal, how did Canada decide to set up the system to achieve it? Like, who actually gets to make the laws that govern engineering? Well, the answer goes way back, deep into the country's founding documents.
This right here is the single most important fact you need to grasp. It's the foundation for everything else. In Canada, there is no such thing as a single national engineering license. The power to regulate professions like ours is given to the provinces and territories. Period. End of story.
And here's the constitutional reason why. The Constitution Act of 1867 basically divides up the powers. You see on the left, the federal government handles big national stuff like criminal law. But Section 92 on the right gives the provinces authority over property and civil rights. And for over a century, the courts have said again and again that regulating professions falls squarely under that provincial power.
So, this constitutional blueprint leads us straight to our first huge foundational pillar, jurisdiction. This is all about one simple idea. Who has the legal power to make the calls, and where does that power start and stop?
Right, so in plain English, jurisdiction is all about boundaries. For us in engineering, it means that the regulator in Ontario has the official power inside Ontario's borders. The regulator in Alberta has power inside Alberta's borders. Their authority is literally drawn on the map along provincial and territorial lines.
And you've got to understand, within those borders, their power is huge. The provincial or territorial regulator is the only one who can grant you your P.eng license. They get to define what professional engineering even means in that province. They set the legal standards you have to follow. They have the power to discipline you if you mess up, and they enforce who gets to call themselves an engineer. These aren't just suggestions. This is the law.
Okay, so we've nailed down who has the power. That's jurisdiction. But you know what? That's only half the story. Our second big pillar is independence, and this is all about how that power has to be used if the public is going to trust us. Now, independence doesn't mean these regulators can just do whatever they want. Not at all. It means that every decision they make, from who gets a license to how they handle a complaint, has to be driven by one thing and one thing only, the public interest. They have to be shielded from any inappropriate outside pressure.
And this chart breaks it down perfectly. Think about the pressures they face. They can't be swayed by politicians from the government. They can't make decisions just to benefit the engineers they regulate. And they can't be pushed around by big companies with deep pockets. Their only client, their number one priority, is the public. That independence is what makes the P.eng title mean something.
All right, so that's the high-level theory. But let's bring this down to earth. What does all this actually mean for you and your day-to-day work? As a practicing professional, how are you supposed to navigate this map of different jurisdictions and independent bodies?
This one. This is probably the number one point of confusion out there. You pay your dues to your provincial association, right? But then you also hear about this national body, Engineers Canada. Are they the same thing? Is one the boss of the other? Let's clear this up once and for all.
Let's start with your provincial or territorial regulator.
like P.eo in Ontario or A.P.GEA in Alberta. These are the ones with the direct legal authority over you. They're the ones who grant you your license. Their standards are actual binding laws, and they are the only ones who hold the power to discipline you. They hold the real power. Now, Engineers Canada is a different story. Think of it as the national club that all those provincial regulators belong to. And here's the critical part. It does not grant licenses. Its job is to support and coordinate. They create national guidelines, which, by the way, are not laws unless a province decides to adopt them. They also accredit university programs to keep standards high across the country, and they work to make it easier for engineers to move and practice between provinces. If you're a visual person, this chart says it all. When it comes to the legal authority over your right to practice engineering, the power, that big bar on the left, rests almost entirely with your provincial regulator. Engineers Canada? They play a super important coordinating role, but they are not your regulator.
Here's a great little analogy to help this stick. Your provincial regulator is like the school principal. They're in the building, they set the daily rules, they handle discipline, and they have direct authority over everyone in that school. Engineers Canada is like the national school board. They set broad guidelines and standards for all the schools, but it's the principal who's actually running the show day to day.
So, what do you do when your work crosses a border? It's actually really straightforward, but you have to get it right. First, you identify the regulator in the province or territory where the work is physically happening. Second, you apply for whatever license they require from you. Third, and this is a big one, you have to learn their specific local rules. Things like how you use your seal or their professional development requirements can be really different. And finally, you always have to comply with those local standards. For that project, they are the law. You know what? This is so crucial, I'm going to say it again. Your P.eng from one province does not automatically give you the right to practice engineering in another. You have to be registered with the regulator in the jurisdiction where the work is located. That is a fundamental, non-negotiable rule of practicing in Canada.
Okay, let's wrap this up with the absolute must-know takeaways. Number 1, regulation is provincial and territorial. Got it. 2, jurisdiction tells you who has the power. 3, independence dictates how that power gets used, always for the public. 4, Engineers Canada coordinates. It does not regulate you. And finally, number 5, you are the one who's responsible for making sure you're licensed and following the rules everywhere you work.
And really, this brings us full circle. This whole structure, with its clear lines of power and its focus on independent, public-first decisions, it all exists for one reason: to make it possible for you to fulfill your most important duty, your ultimate mandate, protecting the public. But I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. This system was designed for a world of physical borders. Now, as engineering work goes remote, digital, and even global, how does this provincially based system need to change and evolve to keep protecting the public effectively? That's the big question for the future of our profession. Thanks so much for tuning in.